First item agenda, public comments. Is there anyone, any,
Sorry, no public comments.
okay, got it. Approval of minutes, March 20th, 2023. Did everyone have a chance to look at them, and does anyone care to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve those minutes.
Do we have a second? Bob, quick trigger. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Tina, you're muted and your camera's off, so. So that was a yes? Got it, that was a yes. Okay, good. Unanimous. Number 4, architects update. So Justin, you're, I assume you're taking it from here, so.
Yes, Justin Hopkins, Tecton Architects. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. So a lot has happened since the last time that we met. As of today, all regulatory applications are in. So we have the water main extension has been submitted. It will be part of the same application hearing for wetlands. The septic design has been submitted to the Madison Health Department. Our wetlands, our inland wetlands application is in. The public hearing will be on June 5th. And that's at the same hearing that the bridge crossing for the water main extension will be in. Our planning and zoning application is also formally in. The public hearing for that will be June 16th with a, my apologies. Yes, the hearing will not open until June 15th. There's a third-party review that is occurring in advance of that hearing date. We also met at a, I guess I would consider it a pre-application level with the Advisory Committee on Community Appearance, ACA, on April 11th. Generally, favorable comments from the committee. There were some questions that we will go back to them for landscape. There was also a request to identify any suitable trees to be salvaged along Mungertown Road. So following up from that April 11th meeting, our landscape architect met with Bill and the town arborist to walk the site and identify some specific trees that can be salvaged. Those are being placed on the existing survey so that we can have them as part of our design documents and make sure that we're able to salvage those. We have also continued to meet at a working level with the public schools. We've held a security meeting on March 30th to go over basically the security infrastructure as it relates to IT, camera locations, etc. We had a AV meeting on April 6th. We had a coordination meeting for the geothermal test well locations on April 11th. We also, similarly with the security and AV, we had a meeting with a particular vendor to talk about communication devices and what's available in the market today for the district in terms of two-way communication and how we can leverage some of the things that we need for lockdowns, but to also operate from a functional standpoint day to day within the district. The big item, last week we had our design development estimate reconciliation meeting. So the start of last week, we received Gilbane's estimate and PAC's estimate. We met last Tuesday to go over the line items from each division and I don't believe we received a reconciled estimate yet, but we're anxiously awaiting that so that we can get into some of the value management recommendations, alternates, et cetera. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions about some of the meetings that we've held. I will say that we've also received the number of comments, collated comments from Colliers, Gilbane, the commissioning agent, and also Eversource's third-party energy analyst. So those are all collated into the Excel document that Adam distributed. No shortage of comments that we need to address. And we anticipate issuing a conformed, what we'll call a conformed design development set to basically capture some of those, and obviously anything that is kind of a construction document level will be deferred to that phase. But we figured it would be very important to provide a baseline design development, so we do anticipate reissuing the design development set. With that, we will also anticipate, after we get through some of the estimate discussions, alternates, value management discussions, which is going to be just as intensive as the schematic design phase, we will be preparing a kind of project summary presentation for this committee to kind of go through all of the systems, all of the graphics, and with that will also be the executable 3D model as part of that. So while we're still technically in design development, we're also working with Colliers to prep some of the OSCGNR documents in anticipation for a meeting mid to late May to kind of conclude this phase. Are there any questions?
Justin, is there any thought of including an AI interface for the cameras? I saw some incredible footage of cameras that in other schools in other states that have an AI bridge that recognizes weapons unbelievably quickly and triggers an alarm much faster than any human being watching the cameras could possibly do. Even in a crowded hallway, it picks them up. And I just wonder whether we should investigate that. It's new technology, but it is in operation already in several schools.
I will certainly ask Kola Ronan, who's has the technology portion and is certainly more versed than I am in that. I will also do a little bit of legwork to understand. To my knowledge, I'm not sure that Tecton has done this in any other schools within Connecticut, but I'll also ask our public safety department as well, because that seems like that would be something that they would also be very well familiar with.
Great, thank you.
That's the type of topic that came up at the we'll call it the first security meeting in terms of
Yeah.
resolution, facial recognition, that kind of thing. So it's a timely question and topic for that. So
Yeah.
good for that.
And I think certainly facial recognition is important, but weapon recognition gives us so much more time to react. Hi there, you. Did you just come back from a walk? Let me mute.
That was out loud, Woody, by the way.
I know, I have to mute. My 2-year-old grandson just came in.
Great. Any other questions for Justin? I assume Adam's going to give us like a high level budget kind of overview schedule thing and his presentation. So got it. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Next item, construction manager update.
Yes. Yep. Good evening, everyone. Woody, that's interesting about the AI. Well, I'll put out a request to the rest of our Gilbane folks that do public K-12 and higher ed to see if that's come up anywhere else, because it certainly would be interesting to see if it's something that can be implemented here. I'll let you know what I find out either way.
Great.
But certainly
Terrific,
newer
Nick,
technology,
thanks.
for sure. Yeah. Yeah, so update is fairly brief. I don't want to steal Adam's thunder on reconciled estimates and the budget, other than to say the meeting went well, and I think we've got a fair amount of value engineering, value management ahead of us to do. Other than that, our VDC, Virtual Design and Construction team, started a few days ago going through the DD drawings and model to flag anything that they think may be come an issue down the road. Typically, these are higher elevation or higher altitude clashes, if you will. We're not clashing every single little thing at this point. Our VDC team kind of has things categorized into really 4 categories based on their field experience, what they think a clash would cost in the field if we didn't catch it and we got into construction and had to rework something or add something. So we're right now at this stage, she's really primarily looking for those bigger dollar values. And then as we get into CDs, we'll start to hone it down a little bit. We don't intend to have a completely coordinated set. We understand there's going to be coordination to do with mechanical, electrical, plumbing and whatnot during construction. But the more we can sort of whittle that down and work with Justin's team on that, I think that the tighter the bid docs will be on bid day, the less change orders we'll see during construction, and certainly expedite construction as well. We won't be held up waiting on resolution on change orders and things like that. So, like I said, Ginger is our lead on that, Ginger Chicos. She started diving into that a couple days ago, already sent me a few questions last night, and I'll forward those along to Justin tomorrow morning and maybe get on a call with him and his team to talk through a couple of the things in the model. But other than that, that's the CM update.
Great, thanks, Nick. Oh, a question on the early procurement stuff. I know we talked about it last time. Are you still thinking we're going to have to do early procurement for some pieces?
Yeah, good question. I think we're going to have to do it on the electrical equipment. I think on the switchgear and the generator, I think it's something we're going to have to do. We settled, I think, 15, 16 months being this construction schedule. And we're experiencing a lot of problems on other projects that are in the 17 to 20 month range of overall duration, not having that equipment on time. So with this schedule being a little bit tighter, we just don't have the room to hope that it gets here in month 14 or 15 and then complete the project on time. Because the way things are set up right now with the different electrical switchgear manufacturers, we would be getting our switchgear right around the time we're turning the building over. And there's a solid 2 months worth of work that has to happen after we get permanent power. So electrical switchgear generator. Our mechanical estimator, Mike Parent, is looking into, he's got a lot of contacts at various vendors and manufacturers, is looking into that avenue to see if what those lead times are. He's a better inside track with that information than I do with heat pumps and whatnot. We don't typically, on a lot of the public schools, we don't typically see the heat pumps. So we have an idea what that lead time is, but he can pinpoint it a bit better. And I can get back to you on that, whether or not that's something that we may want to consider rolling in as well into an early package. I would prefer not to do it if we can avoid it, but obviously it's going to depend on what the projected lead times are and then whether or not the manufacturers see those lead times improving or getting worse over the next 6 months. That's something he'll be able to have a bit more insight into than I certainly would. So, yeah, those would be the items for now. Ductile iron pipe is one that's been kicked around for a little while. I think we're probably okay in that regard, but certainly the electrical equipment, there's no question that should be in the package.
How about roof insulation? Is that settled down now?
Yeah, that is settled down quite a bit. It's funny, depending on the roofing contractor you talk to, they'll tell you, polyiso, the durations or the lead times on that vary quite a bit. It depends how much stock they have. I mean, everybody overbought when things started to get tight, and they continue to overbuy to a certain degree, not as much as before. But then if you ask what is TPO, what is EPDM, what is modified bituminous, you get a wide range of lead times. And I think a lot of it has to do with what they have in stock or what they have a line on. they have a line on TPO, then they're telling you they're trying to encourage TPO to go into the spec. If they have a line on EPDM, they're trying to encourage that. So one roofer will tell you white EPDM, can't get it, it's impossible. And the other one will tell you, yeah, it's 8 weeks. So it's kind of sifting through all that right now on the roofing side, but the roofing is in much better shape than it was a year ago.
Right. Okay, well, we'll work back from I'm sure you'll work with Adam and work back the deadline when we have to go to the Board of Selectmen to get a early authorization. Well, just have to schedule that out, but. Good.
Yeah, it's always kind of,
We're getting close. We're not that far away, right? We're probably a few months away.
Yeah.
Get a call.
we're not far away. And like I said, we're starting to hone down packages. The next thing you know, you've got half the job going out as an early package, and we certainly don't want that. It's a bit too much risk. I would think that the town would want to take on to buy all that material and equipment ahead of getting the rest of the bids for the project. So we're trying to be strategic about it, but we need a couple more weeks to really pinpoint it.
Got it. Okay. Thanks, Nick. Any questions for Nick from the committee? Nope. Nice job. Thanks, Nick. Adam, you're next.
Good evening, everyone. So yes, I'll talk a bit about the estimate here, and then I'll get into just some of the calendar items as we move forward. So as Justin and Nick mentioned, we had a good reconciliation meeting. The updated final reconciliation number, if you will probably be available early next week. There's a meeting coming up here on Wednesday for a key component in terms of some of the soil issues. And then the two estimators are planning to regroup at the end of the week to finalize some of the other nitty-gritty numbers. But all told, the reconciled estimate will be approximately 55.3 million is where we're trending at the end of the reconciliation meeting. For comparison, at schematic design, the initial reconciled estimate was 56.5. So it's come down by 1.2. That isn't as much as we had hoped at schematic design. There was some good value engineering that was taken and incorporated into the building and right sizing some of the hallways and strict square footage, et cetera. But the number did come up for some of the elements put back into the project. So the sidewalk wasn't contemplated. Some of these other items that have evolved through some of the conversations with the town weren't initially in the schematic design package. So that kind of offset some of those initial savings that we were targeting at schematic design. So to answer the big question of what does that mean? At schematic design, we had presumption of a $5 million increase to the budget, and that would be approximately 1.9 million that needed to be found, so to speak, throughout the design development package. Right now, if you still consider that 5 million, instead of 1.9, we're at about 3.4, 3.3, 3.4. So we'll need some sizable value engineering. The good news is that there's already a number of key big ticket items to start targeting. For example, the one that I mentioned about soils that we'll have a meeting on later this week, that could be a $500,000 number depending on how that shakes out. And there's some other big targets with finishes and some of the envelope items, as well as some of the value engineering that wasn't taken at schematic design that we can contemplate again. For example, the radiant flooring for the kindergarten and pre-K. So there's a lot of good targets. And so that's a key focus for Nick's team and Justin's team and the Colliers folks over the next week or two to get those ironed out and developed and put that in front of you all for consideration and to answer the question, where are we and what decisions need to be made to get the budget in alignment. At this stage, we should be targeting getting that number down to a flush budget. At schematic design, there's a little more wiggle room because you have another phase to work through. But now at design development, we want to be basically square on the budget number. So that way, as you go through the construction document phase, there's always extra outlets. There's always an extra panel that comes in when you finalize some of the equipment. That we want to make sure that there's room for that scope to get contemplated throughout the budget exercise, and we don't get caught off guard at the CD estimate or a bid day by a couple $1 million. So it's important at design development to go through and make the hard decisions while we still can, because after DE, it's too late to make big cuts to the building. So any questions on that before I kind of move on to sort of next steps and schedule?
Not on the numbers, Adam, but there was talk earlier of the state perhaps helping out in additional funds based on the increases that they saw and the lead times and everything else. Has anything ever become of that?
So there are discussions about state involvement for funding. It's important to note, though, the difference between state funding and funding authorized by the town for the project. So regardless of what the state reimbursement has, the project still has a referendum verbiage confined budget that it needs to stick with. So that's something that was discussed with town legal counsel and components of that nature. But those, while seemingly related, it's important to keep them separate, because reimbursement from the state doesn't necessarily translate to be able to put more money into the project from the town's funding of things.
Yeah, because we can't, Woody, the referendum amount is sacred. We do have the advantage of potentially moving money from the 3 projects, but we can't exceed the overall total. The reimbursement percentage by the state would mean the town would pay less, but we're limited to the cap in the referendum. If you, so as you know, the plan was to move X dollars from one project to the other project, and it's still the plan. We just want to make sure what that number is as best. And there tentatively is a meeting set up for May 4th with the selectmen to kind of update them on that. But we need a little time to work through this, and maybe, hopefully by that time we'll know what the real ask is. And that Adam will explain the steps we're going to do shortly to how we get there, or whether we get there completely by that time or not. But that's tentatively the date that's been set up to kind of update the selectmen on how much money. As Adam mentioned last time, at schematic we talked about 5 million, some of which we will get back later on through the IRA Act. But we can't, we still have to move the money on paper at least, because the timing of getting it back is unknown. So, if that makes sense.
Yep. Thank you.
Good,
Adam. So, next steps. You were.
Yes. So I'll share the calendar. I had a screen on, or share my screen of the calendar items here. So right now this week, heavy focus is on working through some of those DD estimate last minute topics and identifying and quantifying the value engineering and value management. Right now, there's a regular meeting for the school building committee, this group, the 1st of May. We may want to talk about potentially shifting that to the 8th, just because the reconciled estimate and the VE values likely won't be all baked by May 1st. So having this additional week to get those numbers set, we can actually have a substantive dispositive discussion on the 8th, as opposed to trying to cram it in and having another partial update on the 1st. But ultimately, it'll be a similar process to what we went through at schematic design with, I'll populate that spreadsheet and we'll go through line by line and identify the targets of how to bring the budget and the estimate into alignment. And that will, once we get that delta and identify what things are, yes, we want to take this value engineering item, hey, we want to have this as an alternate, that will inform the final ask, if you will, from the Board of Selectmen, and identify that the town can then talk through and work through what items are critical and know what shouldn't be an alternate. It should put in base scope, what's the additional funding that might need to be moved over in order to make that a reality. All that can get baked out, but before we do that, we need to look through and exhausted the value engineering. And like I said, there's a sizable chunk of value engineering already through finishes and some of the other building components that will populate for the group to consider. Any questions on that, or Graham? I don't know what your thoughts are about potentially shifting the SBC meeting to the 8th.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to push it off a week till we get one more time.
And then the other item in terms of schedule is kind of tying into what Justin mentioned for the DD drawings and Nick's discussion about early procurement. One of the exercises that the project team will be going through over the next week or so is reviewing the what's left, so to speak, in terms of sequential approvals as we go through the land use process, building official, and ultimately OSCGR and then Board of Selectmen to get through and actually be able to put something out on the street for bid. And with an early procurement package, that's another item that needs to be carefully broken out, because if you want state reimbursement, you can't go out to bid until the state authorizes you to do so. So that small package for switch gear and those components need to be baked, done, finalized in its own little cubby. So that way the state can review it and then we can go out to bid for that while the rest of the drawings are being finished. So it's not something that's unheard of or anything like that. But now that we're all but certain we need to go this early procurement route, now we need to actually bake that in so that way the deliverables are clear and we can get those packages and document sets moving. So there's no action item for the group yet, but that's something that's just to keep you apprised that we're working through, so that way all the dates are known, and if we have to shift a package up a week or so earlier so we make the approvals work, that's what we'll be working on now that we're past the initial DD reconciliation estimate.
Excellent. Any questions, anyone from Adam on the schedule, what we're moving forward?
Graham, should we move the meeting the following week, a week as well? Rather than having two meetings with
Yeah,
7
maybe pull up
days?
the calendar. Yeah, I was thinking maybe that, though, is that the holiday week?
No, it's the week before the holiday week.
I would, if I could make a recommendation, I would say leave the 15th for now to see what shakes out on the 8th, because if we're close on the 8th, I would, just from a approval standpoint, I'd rather have something on the 15th where everyone has the directions that can move a week earlier. If we get to the 8th and we find out we need to bump it, then we can do that then. But for now, I would say the 8th and the 15th is probably the most efficacious for the project team.
Okay.
Okay, that makes sense. And the P and Z meeting on the 8th, I think the 18th, is that a hearing, or is that just the acceptance hearing, or is that an actual?
I think I might have had that date wrong. I think Justin had said it was the 16th, so I might have transposed a date. But I believe that's the hearing. I thought they accepted in May. Is that,
Okay,
or they're going to accept at the May meeting? Is that right, Justin?
Sorry, you'd think I'd figure out the mute button by now. Yes, I believe they accepted at that meeting, but the hearing will not open until June 15th.
okay, yeah, because they'll have the ACA referral,
Yes,
right, so, and the wetlands in theory we'll have the wetlands hearing already and the ACA referral, so that by June 15th, we'll know what we're up against in theory. Got it. Okay, that's good. So it sounds like we, as Nick said, we do have some work to get to, but and I'd hoped the deed estimate would have helped us, but I probably shouldn't, even more than I would have hoped for, but I guess I shouldn't expect miracles in this day and age with what's going on in the industry. I should be glad we didn't go the other direction, farther the other direction. So thanks for
I've
the hard
heard some stories of other projects that have gone through some estimates recently that are they're not as happy about some of the
Yeah,
estimates.
exactly.
So this
Yeah,
is
and if you
workable.
didn't,
This
in
is
theory,
doable.
have right. If we didn't, luckily we have the ability of a referendum, that's some flexibility, but it has not been 100% committed to by the selectmen, but that's our job to convince them, but makes perfect sense logically to do it that way. So thank God for that. Whoever put that wording in the referendum call was wise to do so. So good. So you're all set, Adam? Is that your I can move
That's it for
on,
that. If you want to reveal invoices.
moving to invoices, yep.
So pretty simple packet tonight. We've got Collier's, our commissioning agent, VVH, and Tecton's application number 6 for a total of $211,201.40.
Do we have someone want to make a motion, or do you want to?
Where's George when you need him?
I'm sorry, Woody?
I was being silly saying, where's George when you need him? He always
I
does
don't know.
that.
He's got a cold.
Anyway, I'll make that
I
motion.
told him, I told you you'd pitch it for him.
I'll make the motion that we pay the bill.
Got it. Okay, so Sharon. Woody,
I'll
do you want
second.
second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. And I'll remember to sign this, Adam, before you have to remind me tomorrow. Maybe I will. Moving on to number 8, public comments. Any further members of the public?
No comments at this time. We do have Seth, but he doesn't have his hands raised.
It does not. Okay. We may be coming back for a couple more VE items, Seth, but we'll we'll be in touch. Moving on to number 9, remarks. Any other remarks, comments, questions, anything?
Yeah, Billy, where are we with getting to the bottom of what we can count on for the state? We have another meeting coming up next week or the week after?
So what he's referring to, I've reached out to the accounting department and we're trying to figure out the reimbursement with this geothermal, up to 40% if we buy American, and what can we expect? Brand new, very successful information from the accounting department. And remember, we're a public accounting. We don't do taxes, so it's interesting. We're finding the right people. I believe I have a meeting tomorrow with them, if my memory is correct. So making progress, getting answers. Hopefully, we'll have an answer within the next couple of weeks of what we can expect, what we project as possibly for reimbursement from this funds. From these funds.
And that will include the state, which now has some pretty interesting programs available, right?
So I'm referring to the one for the IRA one, IRS one.
Yeah, the IRA one, but that's federal, and then the state has 3 different ones, or 2 or 3 different ones, one of which the new school wouldn't qualify for, but town campus would. But there are ones that the school would qualify for. So are they working on that as well as the federal?
So we're working on that relative to the town campus project because that one's farther along. And we're going to use that one as the sort of guiding light for this project. So yes, we're working on, I don't have them in front of me, but we're working on a list of what we believe we can get for the town campus geothermal project. So once we're successful in that, we think we could bring it over here, but we haven't jumped here yet. And, we're also trying to put the right wording into the specifications. So we ask the contractors to make sure that they, bid it knowing that they need to comply with these requirements. And that's what we're putting together right now. So I don't have the details. You're right. We are working on more than just the federal tax one. We are working on the other ones for the town campus geo project. And I will definitely bring that to you and I'll have a nice update at the next meeting.
Okay, well, I'll see you tomorrow morning on that as well, I guess.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
because there is, Graham, they have, it seems pretty straightforward that the federal part of this does not have any issue with double dipping. So there's an energy efficiency amount of money that we may qualify for, because obviously the building will be very efficient, which will be in that square, dollars per square foot reimbursement, and as well as the 40% if we qualify on all of that, which we should. So we may be getting closer to 50%.
Great. And that's not even counting the Eversource rebates, I assume.
Correct.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, anything federal doesn't get impacted by double dipping. So it's a really good deal. They do take the state off the top when they figure the 30% or 40% though, which is fine. I mean, that's okay. But the numbers still make sense.
Got it. And just so we're clear, so that's in the future, but we can't count on that to solve the budget. It's just something that mitigates any money we move from one project to this project, we can move back in the future, right?
Exactly. But it still works for us.
Yeah, it makes for a good story. I just, the numbers Adam's still got to have the numbers add up. They got to pencil out, as they say.
Yeah.
Without counting that money coming in. So beautiful. And the premium, the bonus on the reimbursement, Bill, are you handling that also, or is Adam I know that came up a couple months ago. Is that still in play? Is there like a 5% bonus?
You're talking about the go from 30 to 40%? What bonus are you talking
No,
about?
the increase in the state reimbursement. So if Madison gets 27,
I
whatever.
know what you're talking about now. Yes. So the answer is I'm involved in that. Chuck from Colliers has taken an active role in helped with compiling a report and a letter that just went out today from the superintendent to the state asking for them to change our reimbursement to, in round numbers, 18 to 28%. The argument is that if we had to renovate the 2 schools versus 1 new school, it would cost us a lot more. And, we've been doing the study, and Colliers has been with us since the beginning. So we have a really lot of data. We have gone from 7 schools, closing Island, and going to 6, and now we're going to go to 4. So we have a really good data. Chuck did an outstanding job helping put together the letter for the superintendent to send out that just went out today. So yes, my expectations are that it'll take a month or 2 at best to figure it out, because we'll be the first in the state ever to request this increase.
Got it. So there'd be a 10% going from renovation to new, going back to the renovation percentages.
Right, yes.
And that would be $5 million, give or take, right? Am I doing my math in my head right?
Yes. Yes, well, we were thinking more like 5.5 because it's 60 million and it's 10% of that, but we were hoping to get somewhere in the 5.5. Yes, 5 is probably the number.
Got it. Makes my story much better, Bill. So,
Yeah, well, I've been involved, but I can't take any of the credit. Chuck has really done a great job pulling it together, and Dr. Cook, and I don't know who came up with the idea. I think it was one of our legislators through Peggy. So there's been a lot of people involved.
yes, I very gracious of you to deflect the, I remember it was your original idea, Bill, but I'm very gracious of you to deflect, give credit around.
Yeah, no, it was not mine, but I'm involved on the fringes, and I'll keep you up to date on that.
Beautiful. Well, if you can find that $5 million, again, it doesn't help us on the referendum number, but it makes for a great story, obviously.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
That's what Avon did. Avon did the same thing. That's probably what prompted Peggy's thinking, because Avon had the same problem and they got the 5. They got 10 million bonus, I think.
They must have just done it, because when we talked to the state probably 3 months ago, it sounded like they never heard of that before. So,
Yeah, they just did it just recently, literally. Yeah. So
you're in the know. We thought we were leading edge, but we're not now. We'll see how our letter compares to theirs.
Yeah.
How long did it take them to get an answer from the, I assume it's gonna be 2 to 3 months, but who knows?
I think it was pretty quick. They got a positive referendum vote out of it, so. That's all good. So hopefully, it makes sense. You know, it's much more efficient to run 4 schools than 7 schools, so it's. What's, you know,
So I
it's
got a note here, it looks like Seth is reminding me that John, Michael Parker is the one that suggested this. He's our state rep, right?
yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so he's the one that, helped us put this together. Thank you, Seth, for, reminding me of that.
Okay, give credit where credit's due. I was trying to give it to Bill, but no, yeah,
I knew it wasn't me.
yeah, you don't have to run for reelection, Bill, so you probably don't need the credit. So,
I definitely don't. Thank you.
got it. I see George has joined us. Hey, George, how are you? Hope you're feeling better. You don't need to talk. I know you're under the weather, so I appreciate you showing up.
Yeah, thanks. I got a cold or something, but good to see everybody.
Yeah, thanks, George. I guess any other comments, questions? I think we're getting close. Anyone would like to make a motion to adjourn?
I will, so she doesn't have to change the minutes.
Got it. And a second, do you want to second it? Just keep it simple?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, everyone, vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.